everyone, and good afternoon, and welcome to this session on universal design and accessibility. Today, this session will introduce and discuss universal design and accessibility, and universal design as a design concept through different examples of the practice of universal design. But before we move into the actual content and presentations and discussions, we will, of course, introduce ourselves. I am Camilla Ryl. I am the Research Director of the Bevika Foundation and Head of Universal Design. We're based in Copenhagen in Denmark. I am a fairly short-legged woman. I am wearing black. I have dark glasses on, and I have fairly long blondish hair. And to my left, I have Jaroslav. Will you introduce yourself?
Hi everyone. First I would like to say that I'm very grateful to be here and meet all of you and all of your great projects from all over the world. I'm Jarek Bogucki from Polish Foundation Integracja. We are dealing with hiring people with disabilities and also with architectural accessibility and products and services accessibility for very diverse group of users. So, thank you.
And to my right, I have Thibaut.
Yeah, hello everyone. So I'm very happy to be here, and I'm very impressed by this conference. That's my first time, so it's amazing. Big thanks to all the Zero Project team. I'm Thibaut de Martin-Pré. I am the director of the Louis Braille campus, which is an incubator, innovative incubator based in Paris.
And Stéphane?
Hello, thank you so much. I'm Stéphane Gaillard. I'm head of the National Institute for Young Blind in Paris and co-founder of the Louis Braille campus. I'm Low Vision.
And we are your panel this afternoon in this session, and we represent different countries, organizations, and different ways of practicing universal design. In this session, first, I, Camilla, will briefly introduce the concept of universal design and how we can understand it, how we can understand its intentions and offset, and also in the relationship to the concept of accessibility. After my short introduction to the concept, we will hear from my fellow panelists here on their experience and practice of universal design in their work also. And then we also intend to have time for a discussion and maybe even questions from the room. But briefly, in short, universal design is more than 40 years old as a concept now, since it was first coined. But importantly, I think in this session also is to know that universal design is first and foremost a value-based design concept. It's a concept that recognizes living with different and changing abilities throughout a lifetime is a condition that we all share. So when you work with universal design, there is no them and us. There are no disabled, able-bodied, with or without. There is only an us, because that's the core of the intention of the concept. This also means that when working with universal design, you include all types of abilities, sensory, physical, cognitive, neurodiverse as well, and you include them as equal and often interrelated. All abilities are equally included when you work with universal design. So it's far more and beyond wheelchair accessibility. Universal design can also be practiced and understood as a tool on different levels. It can be practiced as a core value in a project, as well as a process tool or a tangible solution, and a tangible solution on many scales and many levels. It is a means or a tool to secure equitable inclusion as it's defined in the UN CRPD. This also means that it's a concept to be used across all disciplines and all sectors. in products, environments, services, and programs. It is a multidisciplinary concept and an interdisciplinary tool. This is sort of the core of it, the briefest, shortest introduction to the concept. So when Ron Mays spoke in his last talk, actually, he's the one who coined the concept originally. He said, universal design broadly defines the user. Its focus is not specifically on people with disabilities, but all people. It actually assumes the idea that everybody has a disability. So universal design is first and foremost about a specific core value and understanding of what it means to be human, that we all live with different, diverse and changing abilities. That is the condition that we share. That is also why it's called universal. It's to be understood as universal as the one thing we share. And this is what Mays underlined as a key aspect in his last talk. So when you work with universal design, you don't design special solutions for a special user group, but you include the diverse abilities that we all represent together. And because our abilities and disabilities differ, it differs between us and it differs in our individual lifespan. The diversity of our user needs is vast and actually also endless. But universal design acknowledges this as a value and a norm and insists that diversity in user needs require diversity in solutions. So this picture that is now on the wall is showing an example of universal design in a small scale of how diversity in user needs is met by diversity in solution. It's from the Waddensee Museum in Denmark, and it shows an exhibition detail. The seashells that are exhibited in the museum are shown in a glass monter, but also recreated in a concrete cast, which can be both felt and touched. There is also an audio guide telling about the exhibited seashells. So, plus the whole exhibition is placed at a level so that regardless of whether you're sitting or standing, you can see and touch everything. So the diverse solutions of this exhibition is all about communicating the exhibited seashells, which everyone is coming to experience. And the diverse ways of experiencing it becomes an example of universal design. Because when we work with universal design, one solution is rarely the right solution. It's most often a catalog of solutions. It's only one solution if it's possible to design without the result being the lowest common denominator. If we're losing out on quality for everyone. Most often, universal design is a catalog of solutions in order to accommodate for the reality and diversity of user needs. Another example that I'm showing now is an urban scale. In urban scale is a pocket park from Oslo in Norway. It's a very narrow park, but it has a level difference of 7 meters from top to bottom. And the solution of the park is an integrated and equal way of passing through it in 3 different ways. To one side, you have the stairs. In the middle of the park, you have a ramp that's kind of smoothful, sort of circling through the park. And then to the last side, there is a bike path. The point is that there is no one main solution and then add-on solutions. There's 3 different integrated ways of using the park that together becomes the whole solution, and therefore also an example of a catalog of solutions. So it's the 3 ways together form the universal design solution. I hope this makes sense. So, furthermore, universal design can also be practiced not only as a solution, but as a process tool and an overall value on which a project is based. with the aim of changing attitudes, raising awareness of exclusion, and truly designing equitable environments and societies. This is also what Mace wanted and intended. One of the first quotes from him, it dates back to the 80s, he actually said, "Universal design is ultimately about changing attitudes throughout society, emphasizing democracy, equity, and citizenship. Universal design denotes a process more than a definite result." So the process the universal design denotes is also the one of translating the value-based concept into tangible designs and experiences. Which is why I now have the pleasure of also hearing from my fellow panelists, and they will bring examples of their universal design practice to the floor, so we can see how different and diverse we can also practice this very unique concept that universal design is. So I'm going to pass my microphone to you, Jaroslav, and then you will talk about how you in your work and your organization, you will show us an example of how you actually work with universal design. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So the story is long, but I will try to explain it briefly, because in Poland we are working from 1994, so almost 30 years. Our roots are with disabilities because as a structure we are divided into two organizations, like Integracja Foundation and the Friends of the Integracja Association. And the association is closer to the people with disabilities because it's dealing with job market, with hiring people with disabilities. But Integracja Foundation is working directly with universal design standards and trying to educate and explain the universal design on daily basis to companies, architects, building owners, and also governmental or local governments institutions, how to implement the universal design standards on their daily basis into the product, services, and building also. So it's easy for us to explain all these regulations because of our roots, because of the people with disabilities we are working with, our trainers, our educators, but also with our architects, with know how to explain and how to speak architectural language with architectural offices, because starting maybe we started this journey in 2009 with the governmental institutions and the public market, but then in 2015 we also entered the Polish real estate market to explain the investors and developers that accessibility and universal design should be put at the very beginning of the investment process. It will be the easiest way for them to implement all the regulations, and also the cheapest way to make their investments as inclusive as possible. And that's why we're working on in 4 core activities. As I mentioned, architecture is one of our core activities. We also dealing with designers and producers of products, also with the same idea, telling them the story about universal design, that they shouldn't do products specifically for some group of people, but they should be thinking about universal products for as many people as they can, a very diverse group of users. And the products are also very diverse, because we are thinking about ATMs, furnitures, trains, something on the playgrounds for children, for example. We make a lot of research with parents and children with disabilities about their needs and what is possible to implement on commercial real estate market, of course. We also educate and make a lot of research with people with disabilities, because not everything we can find in the international norms like ADA or European ISO with disabilities. So we get a lot of questions. We are trying to find the answers with people with disabilities, with research and R&D for our partners in business. And one of the things what is it was a solution for a problem. We discussed it before the panel. Switch into universal design. We also encourage you to use it wisely in your daily basis, because it's a handbook for people which are dealing with architecture. And we started it in 2017, and 2 years ago, and 2023, we make a huge improvement into the switch into inclusive design 2.0 version. Because of the norm, it changes, and also we had to put some new information about changing places, for example, or wayfinding. It was developed during these years. We developed a lot of research. We have to put it in the switch into universal design. And the story of this publication is with one of our partners, the Skanska Group, the company who builds offices and residential buildings in Poland. And Skanska don't have their own architects inside the office, so they hire the architectural office to design the building for them. So we were working with very different designers from different architectural offices, and we have to explain them from the very beginning what is inclusive toilet, what is inclusive staircase, how the entrance should look like, the surroundings of the buildings, everything from the very beginning, because they know that they have to be compliant with the Polish regulations or the international regulations, but the universal design wasn't so obvious for them. So the switch was our solution at the very beginning. So we give them this publication, this book. So this is your Bible at the very beginning of the construction process or the investment process, and we will check later how it goes and how this project looks like, and try to make it as inclusive as possible. So it's a free publication. We do it without any public funds. It was also from public, so it was totally from private money from companies from different part of the world, but everyone is operating in Poland. Like Danish ISS, for example, Skanska is international, and Bureau Happold is also the international office of architects. We make also great graphics, because we thought that it's very important for people who are dealing with architecture and design that it have to be beautiful, and that they would like to use it on a daily basis. And we know that it's happening, and in every architectural office in Poland, at the shelf there is a switch book in printed version. And they use it on their daily basis. So we are sharing it also with you, and encourage you to use it wisely on your daily basis with every refurbishment, reconstruction works, with new investments, and new, for example, new offices, new spaces you are opening. So feel free to use it. And we are also thinking about supplements for the switch, because when we are talking with our partners with the solutions afterwards, after the construction is finished, for example, there is also a need, not only in Poland but in CEE, that they need specific information, for example, about evacuation of people with reduced mobility, or, for example, there is a need also for specific regulations for residential projects to be as inclusive as is possible at the very beginning of the process. So also we are thinking about supplements, because the switch is a great base, but we think about little supplements about evacuation procedures and also residential or commercial spaces. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing all of this. Yes, let's give him a hand. So, so your work, it's actually, to me, it's a very tangible tool that is aimed very specifically towards an architectural and building sector practice, but it's also very much about process and the development of it. And you created a tool that goes above and beyond the minimum requirements, and actually creates this handbook of universal design, which I think is very interesting and very important, very needed. I'm sure there'll be lots of people here who would be interested. I hope you're downloading it already. So, Thibaut and Stéphane, because you are doing something in a whole different scale. You created a universal design campus and a universal design center. So please tell us about your work with universal design.
Thank you. I will begin and do a little bit of history to explain you the way from blindness to universal design. You certainly know it, but the blind people faced in their history 3 revolutions. The first one was 2 centuries ago. Louis Braille did invent at the age of 16 the Braille code. He was student in the institution I am director now. I was not the director at that time. I want to do this precision, even if Thibaut thinks I'm very old. So invent this code that event very quickly universal, because all languages are transcripted in Braille, and it permit access for all blind people to culture and education. The second revolution was 1 century ago in Chicago, and the Lions Club did improve and promote the white cane, this tool, very simple, that did access to mobility for blind people. And now, for 3 or 10 years, we face the third revolution, AA. We speak a lot about the issues, the dangers of AA, but much less of all the opportunities, and especially for us blind people, all the opportunities that we have thanks to AA. And that's why 3 of the major national associations in France and my institution, we decided to create a joint venture, the Campus Rebraille, to be together, to put together our energies in order to face the dangers and the opportunities of the innovation. And this campus, and we asked Thibaut to be the director of this campus, and we have 3 axes. The first one is innovation, and thanks to Thibaut, now we have 20 and very soon 25 startups that are working with us. They are working mostly on mobility, the second revolution, and access to culture and education, the first revolution. You can meet one of our startups, Quinoa. They have a booth just outside of the meeting room. The second axis is research, and Thibaut is building some group of researchers, French and foreigners, who are disabled, who are working on disability, or are both. And thirdly, our third axe is on formation, education processes, because we want to improve, thanks to youth and to the innovation and research, all the educational processes in France and abroad for blind people, but also for other disabilities, because we are developing for deaf people now, very soon with other institutions in France, and we are building our Center for Universal Design that will precise our friend Thibaut.
Thank you, Stéphane. So yeah, we are so we are based in Paris. So we have like some buildings downtown Paris in the very 7 districts. So if some of you know the Gare Montparnasse or Hôpital Necker, we are very well located, close to the Eiffel Tower. You're right. And the idea is to take those buildings, that is 20,000 square meters, so that's huge, mostly the School of Stéphane, but also the 3 associations. And the idea is to take 5% of this, so 1,000 square meters, to install an universal design center for the companies or the big institutions, so they can come here, come to the campus, and have for their employees or the designers, the engineers, some acculturation trainings, some co-design sessions with the blind, the low vision, or the deaf. Because as Stéphane explained, the idea is also to extend on all sensorial disabilities, so mostly blindness and deaf people. And the point and the major objective of this Universal Design Center will be to have this place for the companies so they can understand what are the needs of those disabled people, so they can develop some solutions or some products that are by design from the beginning for all, including those populations. So this is really universal design, and both on digital accessibility and on in the real life. Like for instance, if some companies want understand what are the needs of deaf or blind in a shop, for instance, we can have some on-site sessions, including the blind or low vision or the deaf. So concretely, they can understand how they can, by design, design a service that is for all, including those customers. So this is something we are going to start and launch in June the 16th in Paris. So you are all welcome to Paris for that, June the 16th. And just to let you know that on the digital side, we have a very good news, because the French government decided to implement and to open on the campus a digital accessibility center of co-design. So this digital accessibility co-design center will enable all the French ministries, all the French agencies to test their websites, to test their internal or external websites, so with the people, you know, so they can adjust what is not good, and make the web internal or external the more accessible possible, which is, of course, you know, digital accessibility is a big challenge. So we are very happy about this news, and this digital center will open inside the School of Stéphane on 200 square meters before the end of 26. So we are hoping to open that for Christmas. And it will be for all kind of disabilities, this digital center. And our challenge is to open it also for a private company, because as you understood, this is a request of the state of France, so it will be mainly for ministries and public agency, but our objective is to have a mixed usage of this place also for private company. So this is for digital, and the rest is, let's say, the real life, non-digital services or product. So this is it.
That's it, you say. That's a really ambitious and important project, and I think, I hope to be in Paris on June 16th. Sounds like it's where we want to meet, all of us. But it's, but I think also the 2 projects that you are sort of working with universal design on very different scales. So I'm a little curious to hear why you are choosing to work with universal design, like you are creating a universal design center, and you are creating a universal design handbook called Switch, but still it's universal design. So why have you sort of chosen that and not sort of stuck with accessibility or other. Because to me, it's a very important signal that you're raising the bar by choosing to go with universal design.
I think we really need to open those institutions, those associations, toward private companies, institutions. You know, from by the past, those associations and institutions, they are working alone. You know, they are fragmented up to now, and they are not open to work with companies and with big institutions. You know, it's not the habits. It's not their mindset up to now. And our ambition with Stefan and with the rest of the board members of the campus is to change this, you know, to open, to change the culture of those institutions, to open them toward big institutions and companies, because we really think that to change the society, to increase the accessibility for all, the companies has to take care, you know, on universal design, and otherwise we will continue to be only specific, to develop something only specific for the community of blind or deaf, but it's not accessibility. It's not inclusion. It's not universal design. So that's really, I don't know, Stefan, if you want to add something, but that's really our ambition to open this.
What we want, and when we see that what is good for blind people usually is good for all people, because when it's more accessible for us, it's more accessible for you. So we thought that it was better to think global for access for all, and even because the state and the private sector asked us to work on universal design. They don't want to spend their money only for deaf or for blind or for other disabilities. They want us to find some global solution. So it helps us also to speak with our partners to think global, and we could implement new solution useful for all people, for blind people, for deaf people. So that's why we work like that now. It's very new, but it's a new mindset for the state and the private sector in France.
And as all a transformative project, it's, you know, we are touching the culture, so it's taking time, and it's a very change project. But you know, step by step, we will go on in this direction.
Yeah. Well, I think Mace actually would be very happy, because it sounds like you are also thinking of universal design as a means to change attitudes and conversations and language and understanding of what it means to be human, actually, by going with universal design. In your ambition, you are raising the bar, which is, I think, very exciting. But of course, that's also what we do in my foundation in Copenhagen, so we are equal minds up here. But Jaroslav, I could ask you the same question. Why did you sort of choose to raise the bar? Oh, we're sharing the microphone.
Yeah. We have to share. We grown up, and 20 years ago we were talking about barriers. We were talking about people with disabilities, about accessibility only. We are trying to find solutions for people with reduced mobility, but it wasn't enough. And maybe with public or governmental institutions it was enough, but we wanted to raise the bar, because as an NGO, we will have to find the funds to make our own projects of hiring people with disabilities. So universal design was the answer for this one, and the way to enter the business market. And the business don't want to make things only for people with disabilities, because their mindset is that disability somehow is connected with medical equipment, with care, with caregivers, etc., etc. And when we are just changing the perspective that universal design is much wider, and we can implement lot of different solutions for very diverse group of people, and the people with disabilities is only the one group we are talking about. But we can also implement solutions for parents with children, elderly people, people with temporary disabilities, and for example, tourists with bulky luggage, etc., etc. So the group is very diverse and very wide. It's much easier to explain the solutions from the norms and from the standards from international perspective, because when, for example, the business owner who opens new investment of office building, commercial center or residential, he also wants to invite to this building very diverse group of people, because he didn't know at the very beginning who will be working in this kind of building, or who will buy these flats or apartments, or even in commercial centers we have a very wide group of customers and employees of these companies who are operating in the commercial centers. So and also from our point of view as an NGO, we didn't want to separate groups one from each other, but we are thinking about solutions because in 2009 we started also the certification in Poland about universal design standards and this our standard of certification. And we were explaining companies that universal design is the only solution, because we don't want to exclude anyone from this process. We don't want to say that this office building or commercial center is only accessible for people on the wheelchairs or elderly people or other groups. And our certificate in Poland, its name is Building Without Barriers. So we have to make it without barriers for a widest group of people possible. So that's why the universal design was only solution for us, and it's much easier with this to speak with the business, because as I mentioned before, they are interested in innovations, they are interested in new solutions. They made other certification of environmental sustainability, and the next step for the companies nowadays, even with ESG politics and all the diversity and inclusion regulations inside the companies, is us and our needs. Companies are trying to get back people to the offices, and they're trying to make office spaces to feel like home, more comfy, more sustainable, more. They are putting more and more activities inside the offices, and they're trying to attract the employees. And universal design could be an answer for this one, because when we are trying to develop a new solution inside the office or something, the universal design standards help us to find and to make it as inclusive as it's possible. And that's why the widest group of employees could use this kind of solutions. So that's why.
Thank you. Thank you, both of you. I'm also. I think it's wonderful to hear how universal design is sort of a natural, positive, but also potential in your work. You see it as a way of raising the bar and meeting your high ambitions in both your projects. But I have also worked and studied and investigated universal design for more than 25 years. So I know I am also met the long list of skepticism or criticism or worry, and there are lists of questions that I'm sure we all are asked all the time. So I'm also curious, of course, to hear your experience in what are the barriers. Where do you meet the sort of the critical questions, or let's just focus on the barriers, because is it more expensive? Is it more complicated? Is it more difficult? Is it more than accessibility, or has it just been an easy process to say we're aiming at universal design?
We should face the issue like that, saying it's more expensive. We don't want to hear this argument. There is no argument. It has to be accessible. It has to be universal. So it's just something we have at the beginning of the research, the creation of a new solution. Like all things you have to deal with. We have to be frugal for energy. We have to be universal design, to be accessible. We don't want people to think there are some barriers. Okay, it's not an issue for us. It's less expensive to think at the beginning universal than to do some correction afterward. So that's why what we explain to all companies or the ministries, think at the beginning it will be cheaper, easier for everybody. But it's not a barrier. It's just a new way of thinking.
I think as well that we still need to make awareness about the fact that the disabled people, they are also customers or citizens. You know, they are not just only object of, you know, medical object or whatever. And that's very the mindset. Some companies are changing their mindset. I'm not saying, but this is very okay. Sorry, I was saying that some companies are changing their mindset, but still, we need to see the disabled persons as citizens and as customers, and think as early possible in the process, as said Stefan, to design something for all, like a product or a services.
Yeah. But yes.
We are not proud of that, but when we have no choice, we are going to trial against companies or administrations that don't want to implement universal access to disabled people.
Yeah, some association in France will do that. You know, it's terms of advocacy. It's already done in the US, for instance, this to sue the companies, but that's also a way to move forward.
Yeah, that's a tool in itself as well. But so the barriers aren't that it doesn't sound like you've met a lot of barriers, but does that actually mean that there is actually a potential and a new way of approaching the project by going with universal design, that it opens up for different conversations and different partnerships and a new interest? Is it actually more of a positive?
Yes, and we are helped by the European Union because, you know, there is a new law. It's compulsory to be accessible, all services and goods. Now we have this potential to discuss with companies or with the administration to speak with them. The law, the European law is there. You have to implement and to respect it. So help us to build some universal design opportunities.
And the idea of the Universal Design Center that we will launch in June is really to be solution-oriented. We are proposing some concrete solution to those companies and institutions to be compliant, you know.
Yeah. I'm very happy. I'm very excited about this. Well, the shortcut, of course, is that you need to look into Switch when you are designing, right? You need to the two of you need to combine your works. But I was like, what about barriers? There must have been some. Oh, the microphone.
Of course, from this 10-year perspective, we can share how tough it was to speak with business about inclusive design and universal design and accessibility, because it was and it's still a long journey in front of us and a lot of education. And I'm agree that also the European Accessibility Act is a great thing, but it's just a beginning. because lot of companies and businesses realize that they have to do something, but for them it's a start. For us, it's somewhere in the middle, because we know that universal design is a process. You can do it and say that it's enough. We also can improve, always can improve everything, but get back to the barriers. From 10 years perspective, when we started our certification process in Poland, and we were discussing with business the opportunities to implement the universal design in the office buildings, residential, commercial centers, and even in the office spaces, which was not so obvious. With the office spaces, we started maybe 3 or 4 years ago, because of the ESG and because of the diversity and inclusion politics in the international companies. But before that, it wasn't so easy to discuss this because the first answer was that we don't have people with disabilities in office buildings. And it was shocking, but in Poland we have regulations about hiring people with disabilities, and every company should hire 6% of people with disabilities. So our answer was, no. 6% should be in your building, but there are probably more, but we don't know about it. And the conclusion was that they were thinking about only people on the wheelchairs, and not about any other disabilities. So, as we mentioned from the very beginning, it's all-time education. The building owners, the facility management, the people in the offices, that universal design, it's not only for people with disabilities, but it's wider, it's for every user, every employee, either for them, for the management boards, etc. So it wasn't so easy. The ESG policies help with that, because the S is also connected with universal design and accessibility. So it was much easier to discuss it because there were ESG officers in the companies. So we have a partner to discuss the opportunities. Before that, we spoke with marketing because of the certification, or with the technical departments because it's architecture and we have to do something. Of course, the second one was expenses. So the answer was that, okay, we have to make it accessible, more universal, so we will have to put more money into the project or to investment. But from our perspective and international standards, maybe only residential projects. In residential projects, it's a little bit more expensive because of the balconies and lodges and the gap in between the flat and the balcony. Because we are in our certification, we can't use any gaps. Then shouldn't be any gap, only 2 centimeters. So from technical perspective, it was a challenge for them to implement this kind of solutions, but it was a challenge in 2016 maybe. But now in 2020 and further, it wasn't so tough for them to implement the lower gap at the balconies, but in different places at the investment. So in the surroundings of the building, the entrances, the staircases, elevators, the wayfinding, it's all in the project. We are just giving them the parameters they have to implement. So we are just checking that they are thinking about very different users of the building. Maybe in residential also we are thinking about adaptability of the apartments. So they are not building it accessible from the very beginning, but we are trying to find the solutions that the apartments could be adapted in very simple ways. But for example, in office buildings or commercial centers, we can implement all the solutions at the very beginning, but we just have to speak with the architects with their language, and Switch also helps with that, as I mentioned, because of the graphics and illustrations that giving them the simple answers for their questions. So it was easy for us because we are hiring also the architects. It's like with IT guys, yes, you have to speak their language to explain them stuff. It's the same with the architects, so it was easier for us. But the barriers are still in the heads of the management boards, of the people we are speaking with. We have to educate, we have to speak about universal design, we have to separate universal design from medicine and rehabilitation equipment, to showing companies that it can be beautiful, it can be well designed, it can be implemented for a widest group of users. Because at the very beginning there was a huge discussion, for example, with what company that told us that they want a certificate, but architects were thinking only about design, and we were thinking only about the productivity and usability, but the investor said that we have to agree somewhere in the middle to get the certificate.
I think that sounds like a situation most, at least practicing building sector people in the room know very well. But our time is running out, unfortunately. I'm pretty sure we could continue for the longest time, but I think you said it very beautiful when you said it's very much still in people's heads. It's and it is also, so that kind of stems back to Ron Mace's original intention that universal design is very importantly a means to change attitudes and knowledge and awareness, and that's where it all starts. So I'd like to thank my fellow panelists. I'd like to encourage everyone to follow the Universal Design Campus and Center in Paris. We are all invited now on June 16. I encourage everyone to download Switch and understand more about what that tool is. And you are, of course, also very welcome always to check in on our website at the Bevika Foundation. We have a lot of knowledge about universal design. But most of all, thank you everyone for joining this session. We know it's the end of the conference, and we know that that everyone has been filled up with inspiration and information and meaningful conversations. And it's not quite over yet. There is a session more, but thank you for joining us. And
thank you, Camilla.
Thank you.
Thank you for the monitoring. Thank you.
And the questions will be taken to the side afterwards because our time is out. So thank you.